So welcome to CanCham Hong Kong and Hong Kong CBA's 7th annual Transpacific Entrepreneurial Virtual Conference. I'm Rosemary, co-founder of SystematicEdge, and the title of this session is Innovations and New Ideas Inspired in the Toughest Times. With the turn of the new year and the rollout of the COVID vaccines, we hope that we're looking in the rearview mirror at the worst of the pandemic and the toughest times, at least for now. And as such, in this panel, we'd like to take the time to discuss the impact on our community's businesses. Our panelists come from some of the hardest hit sectors, F&B, airlines, and events. And we will get an exclusive look at some of the innovations and pivots in terms of technology, business strategy, and even innovations on how teams are managed and engaged. Our panelists will also share with us their learnings and advice on surviving and even thriving through a crisis. So make sure that you listen until the end of the session to hear all of their hard-earned wisdom. Also, during the session, if you'd like to submit questions or comments via the chat box, please feel free to do so. We'll do our best to answer all your questions now or after the conference. So first of all, let me just quickly introduce our panelists. There's 3 of them today. First of all, Han Lam, who's responsible for Air Canada's businesses in the Hong Kong, Southern China, and Southeast Asia markets. He's part of Hong Kong Canadian Chamber of Commerce Executive Committee and also sits on the membership committee. Air Canada is the largest airline in Canada by fleet size and passengers carried. So if you need to go back to Canada, you know how you can get there. So second, Jonathan Zeman, CEO of the Long Kwai Fund Group. Over the last 3 decades, Long Kwai Fund Group has established itself as a household name in Asia. With extensive brands, properties, and investments, the group is highly regarded as the foremost entertainment and hospitality and lifestyle brand in the region. The Long Kwai Fund Group is also an active member of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Hong Kong and is sponsor of today's event. So thank you for your generous support, Jonathan. And lastly, but of course not leastly, Sophia Chong is Assistant Executive Director at the Hong Kong Trade Development Council, where she's worked since 1993. She's responsible for overseeing some 30 annual exhibitions of the Hong Kong TDC, as well as promoting the exhibition online marketplace. The Hong Kong Trade Development Council is a statutory body established in 1966 to promote, assist, and develop Hong Kong's trade. The Hong Kong TDC promotes Hong Kong as a 2-way global investment and business hub and aims to create business opportunities for companies, particularly SMEs. So, of course, a good organization for all of you to be connected to. So thank you, all 3 of you, for being here today. Now, I'm going to jump right into the questions. So the first question I really want to ask all of you. Now, what was the impact of COVID on your businesses and your industry more broadly? And in what ways did your businesses have to innovate and pivot due to COVID? Jonathan, could we start with you there?
Sure. Thank you for the introduction, Rosemary. Basically, in our business, Lang Kwai Fong Group, we wear different hats. On one hand, we're a landlord, and most of our tenants in Hong Kong and mainland China are in the F&B and entertainment space, bars and restaurants. The other hand, we also run our own restaurants and bars ourselves. And then, we have a third hat, which is property development and resort management in Phuket, Thailand. So basically, every industry we're in is hit hard by the pandemic. At the beginning, when it first happened, when we first started seeing reports about the pandemic, you really don't know what to expect. Is it going to affect me, my business, my region, my market? You don't really know, and no one knew in the world what was coming. And then very quickly, you realize that, oh, wait, it is really going to affect us. Hong Kong was a safe place, and then very quickly we started to have infections and lockdowns and things like that. So as a business leader, it was important to quickly get over my initial kind of reaction that, okay, it's not really my problem. And then to quickly make plans to figure out how we're going to get through this. You know, I liken the pandemic to really a storm, right? The storm is coming. You know a typhoon is coming. How long do you need to get through it? When is it going to be over? And that's the key for business, because not knowing when it's going to be over, not knowing how much cash flow you're going to need. So we really had to shrink things down to a core. So refocus our businesses really on the core, which is the property and the food and beverage that we mentioned. How do we keep staff safe? How do we keep customers safe? Very important. So we had to become educated in microbiology very quickly. Hand sanitizers in all restaurants, protocols for hygiene, and reduce the amount of touch between customers and staff. Through that we started to get through it. Then of course you get government restrictions tightening up, and when you're not allowed to open your bar or you can't open your restaurant for dinner, what do you do? So then it's really coming up with creative solutions. We quickly put together our own online delivery service for VIP customers. Within 2 weeks, we managed to get our tech team together and operations. We managed to innovate to set up an e-commerce website and follow up with drivers to deliver, and we then were able to get some cash flow back into the businesses. Cash flow for any business is the blood of the business, and you need that in order to move things forward. Shrinking down the team, we had to make some difficult decisions. At the beginning, there's a lot of emotion involved, but very quickly you realize that you need to make some decisions to shrink down the team in order to get through as a business. At the end of the day, you're more healthy for it. So we're still in the pandemic. We see some light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccine, but we don't know in Hong Kong when the vaccine will come. Will it work? Who's going to be vaccinated first? Hong Kong relies on a lot of business travelers as well. So, what vaccines will be okay in order to not have to go through quarantine entering Hong Kong, and then also vice versa. So still lots of questions, and we're still in pandemic mode, trying to get through as best we can. Other innovations would be things like coming up with 3 seatings instead of 1 seating for lunch. So that definitely helps as well. That's basically what our experience was, and you don't learn that in MBA school for sure.
No, I can imagine. I just have another question. Your other businesses in Asia, were they as affected as the ones here in Hong Kong, or how was that from a regional perspective?
Definitely they were. I mean, luckily we are spread into 3 different markets: Hong Kong, mainland China, and Thailand. Thailand was heavily affected, and still is, because in the hospitality business and tourism, international tourists are not allowed to fly into Thailand, or it's very difficult. So we ended up having to close by government order, and then by choice for a while, also letting go, reducing the number of staffs that we had. And then we had to kind of innovate and figure out, once we were open again, we opened up on a limited basis, and then also we opened up and started to target domestic tourism, which we never ever had done before. We run a pretty high-end luxury hotel in Phuket, and it's not really, that type of price point's not number one on people in Thailand's list for tourism. But quickly we found that there is a market, there is a high net worth market in Thailand for domestic tourism. Some government policies helped as well. And we managed to, through that, innovate, and we've discovered a whole new market, which is good. Mainland China situation at the beginning, of course, was pretty drastic. Whole cities were locked down, and our Chengdu business definitely suffered at the beginning, but it was pretty quick. Within a month or 6 weeks, 8 weeks, things were recovering pretty quickly in mainland China. So, it's a different way of dealing with the virus, different political system. So they managed to quickly, get things under control as best as they could, and then business started to open up again. And we've seen for the past few months our Chengdu and mainland China business has been very, very robust, which is good. So we are kind of well spread through those different markets, which helps definitely as a business.
So my last question to you before I move on to Han is obviously as your businesses are spread out, have you been able to travel in terms of, seeing your management, and if not, how have you been able to manage them remotely?
Yeah, no, haven't been able to travel. Thailand, if I was to travel, it would be a month or more of quarantine in and out of Hong Kong and Thailand. And it's probably not worth it. Mainland China, I can't travel there right now. So it would be difficult, but we've managed to, also use technology to innovate. And of course, just like this conference, we quickly set up Zoom, Microsoft Teams, every platform or tool that we could in order to, make sure that we could manage properly. And actually, I have to say it's working very well. We were on a team A, team B situation for our staff in order to reduce the risk of a cluster forming in our office. And, a lot of people, they're more efficient when they're working at home, as long as the kids are not bothering them. But then it really becomes based on the deliverables. It's not really, are you seen in the office, but what are you delivering? Which is good. And communication, so far so good. Some things you still need that face-to-face, and negotiating a deal. We are negotiating some deals in mainland China at the moment, and it is difficult over Zoom or online to negotiate those deals, because you need that human kind of touch for it. But in all, I think for our business, it's been a good experience in that sense, and now we are ready for the new way of doing business going forward.
Well, that's good to hear. I know that, we've all had to get used to working at home and managing our kids. So, Han, can you tell us a little bit about your business and industry?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for inviting me today. Air Canada, many people think that we are very much a mature and old corporation, but actually we always say we have to work like an 80-year-old startup with an entrepreneurial flair. Because back to what Jonathan has mentioned, we are going through a storm, and we have literally navigated many storms in the past. We had 9/11, we had SARS, and now we have COVID. Now, nothing came close to the impact that COVID had on us in our last year's business. So our revenue has dropped by about 95%. We are burning about 15 million Canadian dollars cash every day. Our share price has dropped from 50 Canadian dollars to about $12 overnight. And, travel demand has evaporated overnight from Asia to Canada. And Hong Kong, even though we are slightly less impacted, thanks to the 300,000 Canadians who are traveling between Hong Kong and Canada, we still have to do some drastic measures of reducing our workforce by about 25% in Hong Kong. And globally, we have reduced our workforce by about 20,000 employees, which is really painful. But how do we respond to that? So we have to take care of our customers. We have to take care of our travel agency partners. We revise our contracts with them. And from a customer service front, we have to make sure that we are in a safety business. So we are in full compliance with the government entry regulations and the quarantine requirements. Now, the latest of that is that Canada now requires a negative test upon arrival, and we're in full compliance of that. And previously, we launched a customer service campaign, a biosafety campaign. We look at every single touch point from check-in to arrival to make sure that there are biosafety measures to look at to minimize the risk of infections and etc. So all of that, we're trying to put the confidence back into people's mind when they want to travel. We also have to work with other airlines around the region, because all airlines have now got a reduced footprint globally. So we have to make sure that we are complementing each other's network. And even though we don't operate a direct route to some places now, we still want to serve them through our partner airlines, through a one-stop proposition. Last but not least, we all heard about the cargo demand. So again, that's something that we have really focused on, how to turn the tap on and how to send more freighter aircraft and how to find brand new sales leads for the cargo sales team as well. So yeah, it has been a very tough year, but I honestly feel that we have been through the worst already. I know that Jonathan talked about a storm. I always use the terminology of a marathon. And in this marathon, we feel that the end point has been forever been extended. And but at least we have done the first half, I hope. And we are now on a bit of a runner's high with the endorphins and to keep us going.
Yes, well, so a tough year, as I guess an understatement from what you just said. But I guess the question that on everybody's mind is, when do you think corporate or leisure travel will come back online? And do you think that they'll both come back online as they were before, or do you think there'll be differences, or what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. We have actually surveyed our Canadian Chamber of Commerce members in Hong Kong and also some of our corporate customers. Now, 70% of them told us that face-to-face meetings can never be replaced by virtual meetings or virtual catch-ups. I guess we are all human beings. We need to go out there and have social interactions. We need to go out there and meet people and explore the world. So we are confident that it will come back. And I think there are some very good silver lining in the clouds with the vaccine. And back to what Jonathan has also mentioned, the vaccine is actually critical in terms of how we predict the recovery of travel. So the moment the majority of the population around the world in those countries have been vaccinated, I think as an industry, we need to think about how do we make sure that works for travel? Is that going to reduce the quarantine? How do we enforce that and police that? And what kind of technical platform do we need as an industry? So I can see some light in the tunnel, and I'm confident that travel will come back, but it's a matter of time rather than when.
Yeah, I imagine. So I guess that leads us to Sophia. So, I mean, obviously the events industry and exhibitions industry has had to innovate a lot. So yeah, can you tell us a little bit about what's been going on in your industry and for the Hong Kong TDC?
Yeah, thank you, Rose, and thanks for having me today. And I think TDC, apart from being a statutory body promoting Hong Kong's platform and trade exports and in services and products, actually we are a key player in the international exhibition industry. And in a normal year, for example, we organized a number of more than 30 international trade and public events in Hong Kong, normally in the Convention Exhibition Center or in the Asia World Expo. And in a normal year, as I said, and we hosted more than 700,000 buyers from around the world to Hong Kong, and also more than 37,000 exhibitors from around the world. So, but since last February, since the outbreak of the COVID, we all came to a standstill. So the last trade fair that I hosted is already last January, which is almost a year now. So since February last year, we understood that the exhibition industry could not be reopened because due to the international travel bans and also the quarantine, everything. So international trade buyers couldn't actually come into Hong Kong. So the team, like Jonathan said, we have to turn around very quickly because a normal trade fair preparation, it took 9 months at least to prepare for a world-class trade shows. But then because of this sudden standstill of the trade, we have to think about online. So that's why digital means comes into play very importantly. And we are a bit lucky because we have another department which is hosting the HKTDC.com, which is an online marketplace. But then the players there are in a year-round ongoing session of connecting buyers and exhibitors. And the prime objective of organizing trade fairs is to connect the suppliers and the buyers physically. So without a physical fair, we have to migrate all these activities onto the online platform. So we need to have a very strong and efficient and effective platform to deal with. And also not to forget about the normal behavior of our buyers and exhibitors, because even if your team switch to a certain behavior of online, it doesn't mean that they are ready to switch their sourcing behavior from a physical sourcing routine to an online routine. Of course, they browse the products online, they contact their regular suppliers and buys online, but at trade shows, you have to meet new customers, you have to do brand building, you have also to form partnerships, and of course, the networking, the physical networking is a very important part, which cannot be replaced. So as soon as we know last April that we couldn't do trade fairs in a short while, so we immediately shifted to the online events, and we managed to migrate some of the key fairs in April into an online consolidated fair called the Summer Sourcing Week online in July. And at that time, we recruited around 1,300 exhibitors, and whose products also attract 10 times more buyers, like 13,000 buyers from more than 100 countries and regions. So we also experienced another, what should I say, a paradigm shift that I want to give an example about fashion, for example. We used to have, we have an annual platform for center stage for promoting fashion brands. But because of this COVID-19, we couldn't host this fashion catwalk in the Convention Exhibition Center. So we thought about doing it with computer generated graphics, with the green wall at the back. And then we really recruit all these designers to do it on the line. And surprisingly, in a normal context of a physical catwalk, we can only host around 1,000 at most physical audience. But with this online outreach, we can have this Hong Kong fashion designers of their collections being seen and viewed by more than 100,000 viewers just for one show. So you can see the outreach and the dynamics overnight when it is being put on the internet. So of course there are pros and cons of bringing a physical show to the online, because if I may elaborate a little bit more, is we did a lot of questionnaire afterwards of the online shows, and we found that even though we are able to connect all these buyers and suppliers over the internet, 80% of them still come back with us saying that as soon as the physical exhibition is being open, they would not wait to get on the plane. Of course, with all the vaccination and all these safety in place, they would also opt to come back for the show. So 80% of our interviewed buyers over the online told us that they would either opt for a physical fair or a physical come online, but not online alone. So this also showed us that the trade elements built very much on people-to-people interaction, as well as the trustworthiness. Because I think, after all, a trade show also nurtured the trustworthiness between the suppliers and buyers, because they can actually see the product, they can see the person, and they even can visit the factories after the trade show. So there are a lot of activities building around the physical fair. However, because of this COVID-19, we also come to understand that we could not just wait for the physical fair to happen, because business has still to go on. And then we still need to connect all these people, buyers and suppliers, even without a physical platform. So that's why we continue to do this online marketplace by actually developing sort of business matching with AI features to help the organic meetings going on. Some meetings we have to do it through our branch offices, but some meeting we really want the buyer and suppliers can do it by themselves over the internet. So the technology will come into place if we want to do it really accurately and really efficiently. So we learn a lot during this process. But as both speakers say in Jonathan's and also in Hans' arena, I think we all suffer from the COVID-19, because business is not as usual. No matter how efficient or how hard we work towards an online marketplace, I don't think ultimately in a short time span of 1 or 2 years, it can really replace anything physical. So I still think we very much look forward to the reopening of the physical show. However, as a very proactive organization and also a team, I think we still have to think of a lot of means of trying to help the SMEs to do business even without a physical marketplace. You know, that's our sort of very short experience to share.
It sounds like everybody else that you guys had to shift in a very short amount of time. I see that a question came in through the chat, and I wanted to ask you now because I think that that is kind of a good follow-on from what you just said. They ask about the AI that you say that you're using in terms of the matching and the technology in more specific details. So their question is really around the AI and the technology. Like what are you actually using in terms of digitization, and what was the process in order to be able to go from totally physical to online in such a short amount of time?
Yeah, this is a very good question, because sometimes people would tend to think that technology can really just a click of the hand, of the finger, and then you will see the things will be get done. Actually, even for AI, it's a sort of machine learning. So we have to give a lot of data into the machine so that it can learn by crunching all these data, and then to get a better algorithm, and then to really get the accurate matching. So it really takes a lot of experience and participation of the exhibitors and the buyers. So in the beginning, when we first migrate these trade fairs onto the online platform, we very much focus on the online business matching, and we call it a click to match feature. So our participants love it because, but there are a lot of work that you have to make it successful, because in the first place, they have to input a lot of really accurate and good photos of their products and the product descriptions, and a lot of SEM and SEO, which is the search marketing optimization, how you can really put in the keywords to make the matching works, and make your products come out whenever a buyer really search for your products over the internet. So all these things we have to educate, so to speak, our suppliers, because hitherto, when they join our physical fair, they don't need to take care of all these things. They just need to focus on a good product, and then they just bring the product to the fairground, and then the buyers will come, and then they will talk about the product and show the demos. But then over the internet, they have to do the keywords, they have to do the good product photo, the product profiling, and also they have to sort of how to stand out. Sometimes we have to introduce the virtual booth, because in the past, they only think virtual booth is just a gimmick. You just let people go and then see the 360 degrees in a booth. But there are more things that a virtual booth can do, because there are a lot of moving images and also people talking directly to you over video. And all these features have to come out very strong over the internet to capture the eyeball of the buyers. So when we do the technology platform, first and foremost, of course, we have to have a good technical team. And sometimes it's not only in-house, but also we have to partner with the solutions provider. But having said that, even the solutions provider, they need your content, they need your data input in order to make their AI works better. So I would say that, to be very honest, even for the first time solutions provider, having a good shelf product for us, or even tailor-made something for us, they have to gone through the whole 1,300 exhibitors information input, together with the 1,600 buyers input. So they gather all these data in order to generate a better output for the business matching results. So for the first time in July, last July, we have managed to have 4,500 virtual meetings coming out of this AI matching. And then, but then there are some, not everybody is happy, because they are bound to be somebody, the mismatch also took place, because it depends on how it input the data and output the data. So, but then having learned this experience and gathering all the negative feedback or all the hiccups of this matching, we try to improve upon it. Within 3 months, we roll out another autumn sourcing week in November, because last October, again, we have the peak season of trade fair, but then we couldn't organize it because of the COVID. So gathering experience from July, we improve upon the AI algorithm, and also we improve upon the buyer login and etc. A lot of logistics behind. And ultimately, just to be short, is the result is a doubling the numbers of the July version. We managed to have 2,600 exhibitors coming from more than 40 countries and regions participating in the event, apart from Hong Kong, on top of Hong Kong. And then we managed to have more than 27,000 buyers, visitors coming onto it, and then participating in this 2 weeks event called Autumn Sourcing Week. And ultimately, we have more than 1,300 virtual meetings, live chats, and video conferencing over the 10 days. And this time, I think the results are better and people are more satisfied. So you can imagine, even with technology, there are a lot of data input and data improvement, as well as the customer service. And I couldn't underestimate the kind of customer service and human factor that you have to put into it. Because even though we have all these meeting scheduling being done over the internet, we have to mobilize our 50 overseas offices, which is the whole family of TDC overseas, to prompt and also to remind the buyers that have to help them to go online to do all the video chats. For example, like us, in preparing this video conferencing and webinar, I'm sure that behind the scene, some of your colleagues and also some of people from ChemCham is also helping us to set up this environment. So behind the scene, actually, there are even more work to prepare for an online marketplace. So at the end of the day, we think that because of the 50 offices, colleagues, hard work in trying to recruit and maintain a dialogue with the buyer, and also to prompt them into help them into how to log in the system, how to use the features of our online platform, so that the ultimate experience is getting to be better between the exhibitor and the buyer. So very often in one meeting, just for an example, like a Hong Kong watch manufacturer selling their collection to a Hungarian, because I was there in the meeting, talking to a Hungarian buyer. Because of the technical details, we have to put in our Budapest office officer in the meeting to help the Hungarian buyer. And then we have a Hong Kong colleague also helping with the Hong Kong exhibitor in the same meeting. So everybody is very busy trying to make use of the 30-minute meeting so that to make it useful. So actually, there are a lot of details behind the scene that I think colleagues' human touch is very important, and the customer service is also very important. So not just the technology that counts, but also it's a total package together with a human touch. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, yeah, it's amazing how many hours of work it can take to put to work with the technology, right? But it sounds like you found some silver linings in terms of putting everything online, right? It sounds like you were able to increase the number of exhibitors and those that were able to interact with them. So my question to Han is, what were the silver linings for your business, right? So you obviously, you know, flights were severely disrupted, but were there any silver linings for your business that you found through the crisis?
Well, absolutely. So the first thing is actually the vaccine. So we mentioned before, it all depends on how quickly we can get the majority of the vaccine to be deployed and utilized for the majority of the population. I think after this COVID crisis, I think as an industry, we have become a lot more united together as well, because a lot of the issues require an industry-wide collaboration with the airport authorities, between airlines, with IATA, and with the local government as well. So I think I'm actually quite excited by this actually, because a lot of times we feel that airlines, we are just competitors, but actually when it comes to health and safety and reopening travel, we have come across as a very much a united bunch. to look at how do we make sure that we can reopen travel safely for the majority of our people. So yeah, I'm very hopeful that travel will resume, especially with the vaccine. It could be the end of the year. It could be in 2 or 3 years. But it's a matter of when rather than if.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Now, look in the. I'm just looking at the time right now, and we have another question in the chat, and it actually I think wraps up our conference really well because I wanted to ask it anyways. So it's a double-barreled question, and I'm going to ask Jonathan first. So, and we all want to hear all of your answers because this is where the wisdom comes in. What did what were the learnings that came out of this for you? But also, what advice would you give to the people that are watching in terms of how to survive and also thrive through a crisis, right? Because you now have your, you've been through the war, so you can now share with everybody how you got through the other side. So Jonathan, let me start with you.
Hopefully, as Han said, we're running a marathon. Hopefully it's a half marathon or a half war. But
it feels like that, yeah.
I mean, really the learnings, and there's so much that I think all of us have learned from the crisis. And hopefully we take those and make a positive change going forward. So number one for us is to really make sure that you're focused on your core, right? What is your core business? Make sure that you're putting most of your efforts into that, and that you have a healthy cash flow from that, and that you manage that. So in case that something does happen, and whether it's as Han said, whether it's a pandemic or unfortunately a terrorist attack in 9/11 or other situations, there will always be situations that you need to manage in business. So making sure that you have that focus and you have that healthy cash flow in case you do get squeezed, you can last for as long as you need to. I think that's the number one kind of learning and piece of advice that I would give. The other is obviously to be able to pivot quickly. It's not just startups that need to pivot. It's also big businesses, mega corporations, multinationals that also need to pivot in order to survive. And sometimes that pivot might be because of a new technology that came out. So you have to pivot your business in order to deal with that. Kodak cameras did not make that pivot many years ago. And therefore, Kodak film is not around anymore. And really, the pivot can be done with technology. And that's where, luckily for us, we do have a pretty robust tech team in-house. We were able to set up what we call it's like a new outlet. So that our online delivery business is like a new restaurant outlet for us. And we can build that up into hopefully a pretty healthy business. That's important. And then also not to put all your eggs in one basket. The fact that we are in 3 different markets, related markets, but still different markets, means that we're a little bit more prepared than if we're just one business in one market. The pandemic hit these different markets at different times. Mainland China first, and then Hong Kong, Thailand, and then back to Hong Kong again. Now back to Thailand again. So that's important to diversify in terms of your market, but keep that focus on your core business, what you do. So that's really what we learned. You can learn that in business school, but really when you go through it, when you go through the war or the marathon, you really internalize it. And I'm sure all those learnings that Sophia mentioned, same thing. We learned that it's a great idea to have an online e-commerce delivery platform for food and beverage, but the amount of work that goes into it is actually all in the details. You need to take all the photos. Every item needs a photo. Times 6 restaurants in our case, and we have maybe 50 items on the menu, 30 to 50 items. So then how to innovate and simplify your product offering, so your product offering becomes set meals or bento boxes that are easier to deliver and that kind of thing. So the concept of online, the concept of pivot is a nice concept, but it's really in the details, how you execute it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure pivot sounds much easier than it actually is when you're doing it. So I just have, just before I move on to Han and Sophia to ask their learnings and advice, I just wanted to ask you, because you have different businesses, right? You have entertainment and F&B, like, were there businesses that were easier to pivot than others, and which was the easiest, and which was, which took a little more thinking around?
Yeah. Well, I think definitely the food and beverage was the easier to pivot. Our other hat is as a landlord, it's hard to pivot as a landlord. It's a much slower cycle, right? Your pivot would be changing your trade mix and other kind of ideas, but that takes a lot longer to execute. So the F&B side was a lot easier because it's a day-to-day customer-facing business. And when the customers are no longer allowed to come out, what do? We bring the product to them. We engage them online. We teach them that we have different ways to have lunch. You can have early lunch, you can have late lunch. Now there's something called Frunch and Dunch, right? So, including dinner.
I love
lunch
those.
together. Exactly. So yeah, that was kind of the easier part to innovate. On the property side, one of the innovations that's come up is we do need to use more technology in order to reduce costs for property management, so including installing technology to allow people to come in and out of the building rather than have a human being checking people in and checking out, and that type of thing.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I know, I'm sure it wasn't easy trying to manage all of that. Han, can you walk us through your learnings and the advice for the audience?
Yeah, commercially, Jonathan mentioned about maintaining your market share and maintaining your cash flow. I think these two are the critical top elements for us as well. And in addition to that, I think we just need to have a very different attitude to doing business, because we need to move to a new way of selling, and to look at every single revenue opportunities and try to aggressively pursue them whenever possible. And a lot of times we find that what used to work last year doesn't work now. So there's no more the case of, oh, well, that we have never done that, so why are we doing this? Or we have done that before and that didn't work, and why do we have to do this now? So we need to reset. We need to look at things differently. We cannot keep benchmarking on what we used to do. So that's being innovative. And but I also want to focus on the people side of our business, because we are very much a people business. We are an airline. So corporately, we need to make sure that we can pivot together very quickly. We have to put down some of those traditional silos between departments. And we were literally in an emergency room in a hospital and trying to fight for our survival. So we need to have a very quick turnaround for a solution together between departments. And that's shown through in the last 5 or 6 months of last year. And individually, I think we all need to be very, very resilient. That means we need to be prepared for the unprepared. The only thing that is certain is uncertainty, I'm afraid, nowadays. And we need to be prepared to do something that we have never done before, we have never learned before. We all learn more about COVID tests, PCR tests, lab tests, biosafety, all of that stuff. We never know before. So we need to be very adaptable and be willing to do new things, because in the end of the day, the harsh reality is that we need to deliver more and to a different level, but with less resource and with probably fewer people. And fundamentally, we also need to think about internal engagement. So how do we communicate with our employees? That is very important, because when people are kept in the dark in a crisis, people would just assume for the worst and they become very demotivated. So we need to keep our communication very transparent. We try to be very upfront with people. This is the situation, this is what we're going to do. There could be job loss, there could be flight cancellations, but we have a plan to take us out. So I think that just make people feel a lot more informed and engaged. And also about the quantity of our interaction as well. We have dramatically increased our internal meetings and catch-ups. I talk to my counterparts in other sales areas about 3 or 4 times a week, just to exchange, things and tips and working tips, etc. Because none of us have experienced this before. So communication and sharing and learning is very, very, very important. But never forget the mental well-being of our employee as well, because people are going through a lot. So set them a challenge, make sure that they're kept well, not just the mental well-being, but the physical well-being. In Air Canada in Hong Kong, we took part in the Terry Fox run last year. It was a virtual run, and we set ourselves a challenge to see if we put all of our steps together that we make as a team in a month, can we cover the distance from Hong Kong to Canada? We can't fly there, but perhaps we can walk there. So that's actually quite a good team building activity. Of course, a good charity exercise as well. So I think in a nutshell, I wouldn't see it as all doom and gloom. I think we should take every single crisis as an opportunity for us to rebuild our business, for us to reset our culture. And personally, I have been in the industry for about 18 years now. It has been very tough, but I'm also very grateful for the experience of last year that happened to me at this point in my career, because I've learned so much in the last 12 months. And take advantage of this huge mega resets of the industry, because this is the chance for us to get ahead in the industry and in the competition. So this is the chance for us to be more opportunistic and spread the good positive energy to keep running for the marathon until the end game.
Well, it sounds like it's never going to end, so it'll be a super long marathon, right? But but the big question for you is, did you guys make it to Canada walking?
We did. We just made it to Vancouver, so yeah, that counts.
Well, my hometown, so that's okay. So that's awesome. So Sophia, now could you wrap this up and tell us your learnings and advice?
Actually, I really echo what Jonathan and Han shared. I think they're all very valuable advice and insights into their own industry, and also generically speaking, like Han mentioned about how important it is to make the communication transparent, both internally and externally. I mean, you have to do a lot of engagement during this very crucial and urgent period where everybody will feel insecure because they never know what will happen tomorrow. And I couldn't agree more with Jonathan saying that when you go to, it's easy to say pivoting and also to do a paradigm shift, but it's always a lot of details and hard work behind the scene. So the devils are really in the details. So how do you motivate your colleagues, internal and external partners, to do the same thing together with you? Because you can never guarantee 100% success, because this is not something we have been doing in the past. And perhaps just add a little bit about the exhibition industry, because I always feel whenever there is a crisis, there's always opportunity. Why I said so is because I think the physical marketplace is really undergoing a great transitional period. So it is a high time that a lot of manufacturers and also suppliers and buyers, they are trying to migrate and doing another level of sourcing and business. But then at the same time, I think what will come out after the pandemic, even though it subsides in the short run or in the longer run, I think the exhibition industry will never be the same, because as with maybe the airline industry and also the food and beverage industry, because people have already experienced what can be done alternately. So I think what in the exhibition industry, if I just speak on my own subject, I think we are going through to develop into a hybrid model, because I think our participants and stakeholders will no longer be satisfied with only just a 4-day event within a year or half a year. I think they were looking for values that is extended beyond a physical marketplace. So that's why with this experience gathering in the past year, our team is hurrying along with developing our own integrated platform with physical together with online. So I think on the next month, just to give you a heads up, we are already opening up another event, which is a hybrid model to have online marketplace in March, end of March, also congregating a lot of cross sectors together, which is prolonging this online marketplace to go into July. Hopefully, with fingers crossed, I hope traveling will be made, maybe the GBA area at least, we can have some visitors coming to Hong Kong, that we have a physical marketplace can be in place. So we are already pushing or promoting this hybrid model for this year. So I hope our friends and participants in the business circle will also be able to participate in the upcoming events of the TDC. So thanks again for sharing all your insights. Very valuable indeed. Yeah.
Oh, you're absolutely right, Sophia. I mean, they were all super valuable. I mean, what did I hear? I heard take advantage of the reset. So definitely words to live by. Cash flow is always important to make sure that you're looking at that, because we see it in our own business. Our clients, you know, cash flow and you know, financing is kind of a key word these days in terms of what's going on. So we really appreciate you sharing those insights, and I'm sure everybody really appreciates you sharing those insights. I'm sure everybody was taking notes just like I was. So that's unfortunately, we've come to the end of our session today. So thank you, Sophia, Han, and Jonathan, for being with us today and for sharing with us what was most certainly a stressful experience. And I'm sure that's, you know, that's the mildest thing I could possibly say. It was stressful times 100, I'm sure. But it eventually, it sounds like, enabled your businesses to more than just survive, but actually pivot and thrive and reset, like he said. So like I said, I took lots of notes, and listening to your experiences is giving me better perspective and insight that I can consider for my own business as well. So again, thank you on behalf of, I'm sure, everybody in the audience. So on that note, thank you to our attendees today for participating. We really appreciate your time. If you'd like to connect with myself or any of the speakers today, please feel free to do so via the LinkedIn profiles on the CanCham Hong Kong event page. Attendees, you should have also been sent a list of all those attending the conference in order that you can connect with each other as well. So we've had a great lineup of conversations today, and I hope you've enjoyed the conference.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.